Alright, it is 10:03 a.m. and I'm watching SYSX, and I drew this little trend line here and I want to see if it can break it, and if it breaks it, if it can do something nice. I was watching this in the morning for a breakout over this 48.2 level because that was the high on the previous day, and it did it. It just blew past it, so I was never really able to be a part of the setup here. It looks like it's trying to maybe break past it. Let's see if it can continue the... Looks like my chart is... There we go. Okay, it looks like it's doing it now. I didn't really have this line when I was in the trade here, but maybe that would have helped me a little. But at the same time, the price action was looking really sketchy, and this is the most amount of green volume in a pretty long while. Again, I missed the ideal setup where it broke the previous day high, and it did make a nice run up, and I was watching it ever since, and I wanted to be a bit patient with it, but I did take a trade at 957, and I traded just a tiny amount of shares, but it was actually pretty close to my $15 risk level because this thing is very wide, and I bought 1,000 shares at 606 and 957. I was in it right here, 957, 606. Why? Because they had like a little dip under VWAP and it was looking like it was uptrending, and the level 2 looked a lot better, but then it started trading all weird and sketchy, and it kept following this trend line that I guess maybe if I had this, maybe I would have gone into it a bit later, although you can see how it kind of just broke past the trend line and it just jumped. But now this thing can potentially be able to, if it continues this momentum, try to make a move and try to break the day high, which would be pretty cool. And this was a bull flag setup. That's why I was interested in it. I just didn't like how I would be in this setup, and then everybody's going to be risking this level and their mom. So if it breaks, it is going to fall off a cliff. Let's see if this thing tries to make a move towards the high, and I'll make an update later. Okay, it is 10:08, and I did ultimately sell at 10 o'clock right around here because I did not really like the price action. There was a lot of people that were stacking up in the 60s, and maybe if I had this trend line, I probably would have been more patient with it. But I thought it was going to work right then and there because it was already starting to have a little bit of an uptrend, and it just didn't do it, which is fine. It did break this level, the 69 level, but it wasn't very strong the way it got to the 70s, although it can still try to uptrend later. But I mean, at that point, it eventually broke this little trend line right here. So yeah, I think I might leave this one alone. This is a pretty interesting stock to watch. It's very, I mean, compared to most OTCs, this one is really hard to trade because it has a wide spread and it's very jumpy. And the level 2 is almost useless because almost nobody is actually showing their actual size. It's pretty interesting because I have to look at the time and sales and the overall volume to get an idea, and trend lines. I have to not use the level 2. It's pretty cool. And as for the other OTCs, there isn't really anything that I'm interested in. DWAC for a listed stock was actually nice in that it kind of had like a mini morning panic bounce play. In theory, it downtrended right, and it started to play off of this level, and it did uptrend and get to VWAP briefly here, and now I got to it a bit better, but nothing too crazy, and I will make an update later. Okay, it is 10:33 and I want to make an update. PRCX is maybe another SYSX. It's having an uptrend. Although this one seems to be a little nicer in that the level 2 tends to be a little more useful, but this one trades with a wider spread, I think, compared to SYXX. And I just drew this little trend line here. It's broken, so maybe it could downtrend. There isn't necessarily anything I want to do with it. It'll just be a wash. I don't see any obvious setups with this one. And as for SYSX, at first I was watching it to see if it was like a bull flag inception where it makes a bull flag, right? And here's the second one. But eventually, when it just started taking too long, I was thinking, this could be like a dip buy, like a head and shoulders dip buy. So, like, it has a shoulder, it has a head, and then it has a dip somewhere, and I take a buy, and then ideally it makes a shoulder, and I sell into the shoulder top, and it just really didn't drop that much for me to consider it. I would have liked it if it went to VWAP, especially because the VWAP here is higher than it was previously, so it was still uptrending overall and bullish in that way. And then it did uptrend. I mean, it got to 69 from the 62 level, but again, I would have liked it if there was a bit more range with this. At this point, I don't think I want to do anything with it. And the other one I'm watching is NWVO, and this one is uptrending too. Maybe if it does some kind of a dip under VWAP, I'll be interested in it. Otherwise, I'll probably just leave this one alone. Pretty interesting, very sketchy recently, these OTCs, but it's a lot better than nothing. And yeah, I just have right now just one scratch with SYSX, and the setup did work out eventually, which was nice, even if I wasn't a part of it. I did see the pattern. It just took much longer than what I wanted it to, and I didn't have a trend line, which might have helped me to, be in at a better price or perhaps be more patient. I'll make an update later. I don't want to make like a whole bunch of updates, but as of right now, there isn't anything that I want to consider trading. Okay, it is 10:11 p.m. and I am here to call it off. Overall, I am down on the day just a little, $3.70. And I had two trades with SYXX. The first one was a scratch, and it did ultimately work out, but I was just, I guess, thrown off. And I think I can ideally, if I were to have the same setup again, be able to be profitable with it. And I did miss that breakout over the previous day high. That one was pretty nice, and that was a trade that I took there. And this one actually worked out. It did make that move. It was a bull flag. It did play out ultimately, and I was watching it later, and I actually did take another trade just one more time. Let me see if I can get this thing to work again. There we go. I don't know how that works. It's kind of glitchy, but you can, yeah, you see it's kind of glitched, but you can somehow get E-Trade to actually zoom in, but the way it does is just kind of messed up. I think it'll be best to look at it from here, but I did take a trade one more time, and it was pretty much the same setup from the previous run up and spike that it had right here. And ultimately, I thought, you know what, I might try to do, instead of trying to be Mr. Smarty Pants and trying to buy in when it looks like it's at a dip or right when it looks like it's trying to reverse, let me consider the setup maybe right when it's already trying to make a move towards the upside. So then in theory, if I'm in it and it continues to work, that's great. Then for me to try to be in it early when I think is right about to reverse, or maybe at a dip that I think is a dip, but then it keeps dropping. So I did take another trade at 1050, and it did not work out right here. And I traded just a small amount of shares. In theory, I was pretty close to a $15 risk level because I was still very anxious that this thing had a possibility of maybe breaking VWAP or immediately start to downtrend and fade and just have a really big panic. And I kind of had in mind that worst case scenario, I'm in the setup and it immediately starts panicking like crazy, and with slippage the way it is, maybe I'm out at 54 or something, but I was probably exaggerated. And as you can see, it did not work out. It immediately started the downtrend, and I did get out at 1056, which was right here because it looked like it was starting to break under VWAP, or at least it was really close to it. The VWAP line is different now, but when I was looking at it, and it doesn't really show because it adjusted, but it looks like it was about to break it, and it did get under it. It did downtrend more, and yeah, I just lost interest in trading it because it was trading back and forth. But in theory, it did try to make another move. It did do like a higher day breakout, but it wasn't very nice looking. And then it had a big panic. At this point, I wasn't really interested in it anymore. But maybe if I was picky, I could have tried inverse head and shoulders. But we'll see if this one continues to maybe try to uptrend for a longer period of time. Some people that are short sellers, very classic for it to just run up 3 days and then start to reverse, but maybe this one can be something different. That's really about it. Very frustrating stock, but I think I'm learning a lot from it. And ideally, most OTCs in the future do not start trading like SYXX. Otherwise, I'm going to have to really adjust to the price action. That's all I have for today.